Have you ever noticed how some people walk into a room? They don't just enter, they arrive. There's something different about them. It's not about money. It's not about status. It's something much more valuable. They carry themselves as if they've already won at life. What does it mean to win at life? That's the question we must answer first. Most folks are playing the wrong game. They're chasing happiness in places it can't be found. They're looking for fulfillment in things that can only bring temporary pleasure. They're seeking meaning in achievements that once reached somehow feel hollow. Things is both simple and profound. Winning at life isn't about what you have. It's about who you... Let me share something with you that changed everything for me. I was driving down a country road, feeling pretty sorry for myself. Business wasn't great. Relationships were strained. I was wondering where I had gone wrong. And then it hit me. I was measuring success all wrong. I was counting dollars when I should have been counting growth. I was focused on what I didn't have instead of developing what I could become. That's when I realized the game of life isn't won by accumulation. It's won by transformation. The question isn't, what did you get? But who did you become in the process? Most people live with one foot in the past and one foot in the future, and they wonder why they're not getting anywhere in the present. They're stuck in regret about what happened or anxiety about what might happen. Meanwhile, life, actual life, is happening right now and they're missing it. Acting like you've already won means living differently today. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when your ship comes in. Today, here's what I want you to consider. What if you already have everything you need to live an extraordinary life? What if the seeds of greatness are already planted within you, just waiting for the right conditions to grow? The difference between where you are and where you want to be is the person you need to become. And becoming that person starts with a decision to act as if you've already won. Winners think differently. They see opportunities where others see obstacles. They find lessons in failures where others find excuses. They invest time while others... I want to tell you about someone I know. This person started with nothing special. Average talents, average background, average resources. But they understood one thing that made all the difference. Circumstances don't determine outcomes. Decisions do. Every day, they made decisions as if they were already the success they wanted to be. They read books that expanded their thinking. They sought out mentors who challenged their limitations. They practiced disciplines that others found inconvenient. They were willing to do what others wouldn't, so they could have what others couldn't. This isn't about pretending or fake it till you make it. This is about alignment, aligning your daily actions with your highest vision for yourself. It's about integrity in the purest sense, being whole and divided in your approach to life. Most people are waiting for success to happen to them. They're waiting to feel successful before they act successful. They've got it backwards. Success isn't something you pursue. It's something you attract by the person you become. Let me ask you something. If you were already the person you aspire to be, what would you do differently today? How would you spend your time? What conversations would you have? What thoughts would you entertain or dismiss? What habits would you practice without fail? Those answers reveal the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And closing that gap isn't about changing your circumstances. It's about changing yourself. The world responds not to your desires, but to your demonstrations. It rewards not what you know, but what you do with what you know. It opens doors not because of what you want, but because of what you've proven. I learned this lesson the hard way. For years, I was focused on the destination, the achievements, the recognition, the rewards. I thought happiness was waiting for me at some future point when I finally made it. What a waste of precious time. I was chasing shadows while the substance of a meaningful life was right in front of me all along. The game of life isn't out there somewhere. It's in here, in the choices you make when nobody's watching, in the standards you hold for yourself, in the thoughts you choose to nurture or weed out. Acting like you've already won means approaching each day as an opportunity to express your highest values, not just chase your temporary wants. It means seeing each interaction as a chance to give value, not just get something. It means treating each setback as an education, not just an irritation. Here's a powerful truth. You don't have to wait for permission to live exceptionally. You don't need anyone's approval to pursue excellence. You don't require validation to create value. Consider this. The moment you decide to act like you've already won the game of life is the moment you take full ownership of your existence. No more blaming circumstances. No more waiting for perfect conditions. No more delegating your happiness to external factors. I've observed something fascinating about truly successful people. They refuse to be victims. They don't deny difficulties, but they don't let difficulties define them either. They understand that life is not about what happens to you, but what you do about what happens to you. This isn't positive thinking. It's powerful thinking. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about creating reality through your focused intentions and consistent actions. Let me be clear about some. Acting like you've already won doesn't mean you'll never face challenges. Quite the opposite. Winners face the same problems as everyone else, sometimes more because they're playing a bigger game. The difference is in how they respond. When ordinary people hit obstacles, they often retreat to their comfort zones. When winners hit obstacles, they expand their capabilities. They don't shrink the challenge. They grow themselves to meet it. They understand that comfort and growth rarely coexist. I want to challenge you to think about success differently. Most people think success is the key to happiness. But what if happiness, or rather fulfillment, is actually the key to success? What if feeling grateful, purposeful, and engaged isn't the result of winning but the cause of it? Acting like you've already won means generating those internal states regardless of external circumstances. It means choosing your emotional responses rather just reacting to what life throws at you. One of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is this: what am I pretending not to know? Usually, we know exactly what we need to do to improve our lives, but we pretend not to know because knowledge brings responsibility, and responsibility can be uncomfortable. But discomfort is the price of growth. Temporary inconvenience is the cost of long-term improvement. These are trades that winners make willingly, while others make excuses. I once met someone who completely transformed their life in just 18 months. They went from being deeply in debt to financially stable, from unhealthy to fit, from lonely to surrounded by quality relationships. When I asked how they accomplished so much so quickly, their answer was profound in its simplicity. I stopped waiting to feel ready and just started acting ready. That's the essence of what I'm sharing with you today. Stop waiting to feel like a winner and start acting like one. The feelings will follow the actions, not the other way around. I want to talk about something that might make some of you uncomfortable: responsibility. Not just responsibility for your actions, but responsibility for your thoughts, your emotions, your interpretations of events. Most people readily accept responsibility for their successes, but look for someone or something else to blame for their failures. Winners take responsibility for all of it, the good, the bad, and everything in between, not because they're at fault for everything that happens, but because taking responsibility gives them power to respond effectively. When you blame others, you surrender your power. You essentially say, my life is controlled by these external factors. When you take responsibility, you reclaim your power. You say, regardless of what happens, I choose my response. This level of responsibility is rare, which is precisely why extraordinary results are rare. Most people want better results without better responsibilities. It doesn't work that way. Acting like you've already won means taking 100 responsibility for 100 your results, 100 of the time. No blame, no excuses, no justifications. Here's a simple but transformative practice. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what did I do today that a winner would do? What did I do that a winner wouldn't do? This simple reflection begins to align your daily actions with your highest aspirations. I want to share something else that changed my perspective on success. For years, I was focused on achievement, setting goals, working hard to reach them, then immediately setting new goals without ever really celebrating or appreciating what I'd accomplished. I was on an endless treadmill of achievement without fulfillment. Then I realized something. The joy isn't just in reaching the destination. It's in the journey itself. The game of life isn't something to be won at some future point. It's something to be played with full engagement right now. Winners don't just enjoy the trophies. They enjoy the process of earning them. They find meaning not just in results, but in effort. They discover purpose not just in accomplishment, but in growth. This shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of delaying happiness until you reach some arbitrary goal, you can experience it in the pursuit itself. Instead of putting your life on hold until some future achievement, you can live fully in each moment of the journey. Acting like you've already won means bringing your best self to whatever you're doing, not just to achieve a particular outcome, but because bringing your best is its own reward. It means doing the right thing, not because it will get you something, but because it's the right thing. This is where many people get confused about success. They think it's about acquiring more money, more recognition, more stuff. But real success is about becoming more capable, more giving, more awake to the miracle of existence. The paradox is that when you focus on becoming, the acquiring often takes care of itself. When you focus on creating value rather than collecting rewards, the rewards tend to follow naturally. When you focus on contribution rather than acquisition, you end up with both. I remember talking with someone who was constantly frustrated because they felt life was withholding what they deserved. They had talent, they had dreams, but things weren't happening as quickly as they wanted. In our conversation, it became clear. They were more focused on what they could get than what they could give, more concerned with being recognized than being valuable. The shift for them came when they stopped asking, "What can I get?" and started asking, "What can I give?" They stopped focusing on what was missing and started focusing on what they could contribute. Within a year, their whole life had transformed. Not because the world suddenly became more generous, but because they did. This is a universal principle. The world doesn't pay you for what you know. It pays you for what you do with what you know. It doesn't reward your intentions. It rewards your actions. It doesn't respond to your needs. It responds to your contributions. Acting like you've already won means leading with contribution, not expectation. It means focusing on what you can put in, not what you can take out. There's a certain irony in this approach to life. When you stop desperately pursuing happiness and instead focus on creating meaning, happiness tends to find you. When you stop obsessively chasing success and instead devote yourself to creating value, success often appears almost effortlessly. When you stop demanding that life meets your expectations and instead appreciate what life is offering, you discover a wellspring of contentment that no external achievement could provide. This is the secret that winners understand. Life's greatest rewards come not from what you get, but from who you become in the process of your journey. So let me ask you, who are you becoming? Is that person aligned with your deepest values and highest aspirations? Or are you becoming someone shaped primarily by convenience, comfort, and the expectations of others? The quality of your life ultimately depends on the quality of your character. And character isn't formed by circumstances. It's revealed by them. Circumstances don't make you. They show you who you've already become through your daily choices. Act like you've already won the game of life, and watch how life begins to reflect that inner victory in your outer circumstances. Not because of some magical thinking, but because winners take different actions, make different choices, and ultimately create different results. The game of life is meant to be played with joy, with purpose, with full engagement. It's not about reaching some final destination. It's about who you become on the journey. And who you become is determined by the choices you make each day. Choose wisely, act boldly, and live as if you've already won. Because in the truest sense, the moment you make that decision is the moment you've already taken the most important step toward victory. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. Have you ever thought about that? The same habits, the same attitudes, the same level of commitment you bring to small things, you bring to the big things too. Winners understand this. They don't compartmentalize excellence. They don't say, I'll be disciplined in my business, but not with my health, or I'll be honest with others, but not with myself. They recognize that character isn't situational, it's foundational. Most people never reach their potential, not because they aim too high and miss, but because they aim too low and hit. They settle for good enough when greatness is within reach. They choose comfort over growth, convenience over commitment, instant gratification over lasting fulfillment. What about you? Are you settling somewhere in your life? Have you drawn a line and said, this far, no further? Have you accepted limitations that are self-imposed rather than reality? Let me tell you something that may surprise you. Your potential is not fixed, it's expandable. The limits you perceive are usually just that, perceptions, not realities. They're based on past experiences, outdated beliefs, or what someone else told you was possible. Winners reject these artificial limitations. They understand that human potential isn't something you discover. It's something you create. It's not something you find. It's something you expand through consistent growth and courageous choices. I remember a conversation with someone who had been in the same position at the same company for 15 years. When I asked why they hadn't advanced, they said, I've reached my ceiling. But upon deeper discussion, it became clear they hadn't reached a ceiling. They had simply stopped climbing. They had settled for what was familiar rather than stretching toward what was possible. The turning point came when they asked themselves a powerful question: what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? The answer revealed dreams they had buried under layers of self-doubt and comfortable routines. And when they began acting on those dreams, first in small ways, then in increasingly bold ones, they discovered capabilities they didn't know they had. That's what happens when you start acting like you've already won. You tap into potential that was always there, but remained dormant because you never demanded its emergence. Success leaves clues. Look at anyone who's achieved extraordinary results, and you'll find they share certain fundamental habits and attitudes. They're not just doing different things. They're doing things differently. What are these differences? First, winners take complete ownership of their lives. While others complain about circumstances, winners create circumstances. While others wait for opportunities, winners create opportunities. While others make excuses, winners make progress. Second, winners think long-term. They're willing to sacrifice immediate pleasure for long-term gain. They understand that anything worthwhile requires investment before it yields returns. Whether in business, relationships, health, or personal development, while others chase quick fixes and instant results, winners build foundations for lasting success. They plant seeds today that will become trees of abundance tomorrow. They understand that the greatest achievements take time, and they're patient enough to see their visions through to completion. Third, winners focus on fundamentals. In a world constantly chasing the newest hack, shortcut, or magic bullet, winners master the basics. They build their success on bedrock, not sand. They understand that spectacular results come not from sporadic brilliance, but from consistent excellence in fundamental areas. In your health, it's not about the latest fad diet. It's about the fundamentals of nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress management applied consistently over time. In your finances, it's not about get-rich-quick schemes. It's about earning, saving, investing, and giving wisely year after year. In your relationships, it's not about grand gestures. It's about daily demonstrations of love, respect, and genuine interest. Mastery of fundamentals may not be exciting, but it's what separates lasting success from temporary achievement. Fourth, winners embrace discomfort. They understand that comfort and growth rarely coexist. While others organize their lives around avoiding discomfort, winners use discomfort as a compass pointing toward growth opportunities. Are you feeling uncomfortable in a particular area of your life? That might be exactly where you need to focus. Discomfort often signals the edge of your current capabilities, the boundary between who you are and who you could become. Fifth, winners pursue excellence, not perfection. Perfection is an illusion that paralyzes progress. Excellence is a standard that inspires improvement. while perfectionism demands flawlessness, which is impossible. Excellence demands your best, which is always possible. I've known talented people who accomplished little because they were waiting for perfect conditions or perfect capabilities before they would act. Meanwhile, others with less talent but more courage took imperfect action, learned from their mistakes, and eventually surpassed the perfectionists who never even started. Excellence says, I'll give my best with what I have where I am. Perfection says, I'll wait until everything is just right. One leads to growth, the other leads to stagnation. Sixth winners maintain perspective. They don't get too high in success or too low in setback. They recognize that triumph and disaster are both imposters. Neither defines them. What defines them is how they respond to each. When you act like you've already won the game of life, you develop this equanimity. You appreciate successes without being attached to them. You learn from failures without being defined by them. You remain centered while circumstances swirl around. Perspective allows you to distinguish between problems and predicaments. Problems have solutions. Predicaments have outcomes. Much of what we call problems are actually predicaments, situations we must accept and adapt to rather than solve. Winners focus their energy on problems they can solve while accepting predicaments they cannot change. Seventh winners guard their influences. They're intentional about what and who they allow to shape their thinking. They understand that you become like those you spend time with, so they choose their associations carefully. They consume information that elevates rather than deteriorates their mindset. They seek environments that inspire rather than diminish their potential. Look around at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Their attitudes, their achievements, their standards, these are shaping you more than you might realize. Are these influences aligned with the person you aspire to become? If not, you might need to make some difficult but necessary changes in your associations. The company you keep will determine the heights you reach. Choose wisely. Eighth, winners practice gratitude. They don't wait for more to be thankful for. They find more what they already have to be thankful for. They understand that gratitude isn't just a response to blessings. It's a catalyst for them. Being grateful doesn't just acknowledge abundance. It creates it. When you're grateful, something magical happens. You start noticing opportunities that were always present but previously invisible. You develop creative solutions to challenges that once seemed insurmountable. You attract people who want to help you succeed. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's wrong to what's right, from what's missing to what's present, from what you lack to what you have. This shift changes everything. Not because your circumstances change instantly, but because your perception of them does. And perception shapes reality. Ninth winners live purposefully. They don't just go through motions. They move with intention. Each day isn't just another 24 hours to fill. It's an opportunity to advance their most important values and priorities. Purpose answers the question, why? Why you get up in the morning, why you do what you do, why your life matters. Without clear answers to these questions, it's easy to drift, to let circumstances or other people's agendas determine your direction. Winners define their why and let it guide their decisions. Their purpose might evolve over time, but they're always connected to something larger than themselves, something that gives meaning to their efforts and resilience in their struggles. When you act like you've already won the game of life, you connect with your deepest purpose and let it inform your daily choices. You don't just do things, you do things that matter to you and to others whose lives you touch. 10th, winners take time for reflection. In a world that values constant action, they understand the power of stepping back, getting quiet, and examining their progress. They regularly ask themselves, I'm moving in the right direction. Are my actions aligned with my values? What's working? What needs adjustment? What am I learning? This reflective practice prevents winners from confusing motion with progress. It allows them to correct course before small deviations become major detours. It helps them extract wisdom from experience rather than just accumulating experiences. Set aside time each day, each week, and each month for reflection. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity for anyone committed to continuous improvement and meaningful achievement. Now let's talk about something that stops many people from acting like winner. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown, fear of not being enough, fear of being too much. Fear is universal, but how we respond to it separates winners from the rest. Winners aren't fearless, they're courageous. There's a crucial difference. Fearlessness denies reality. Courage acknowledges fear, but moves forward anyway. When you act like you've already won the game of life, you develop a relationship with fear that transforms it from an obstacle to an ally. You recognize fear as a signal that you're stepping into growth territory. You welcome it as evidence that you're extending beyond your comfort zone. You use it as fuel rather than allowing it to become a barrier. It's a powerful approach to fear. Acknowledge it, thank it for trying to protect you, then gently set it aside as you move forward. Yes, I'm afraid. Yes, this matters to me. Yes, I'm going forward anyway. Actually related to fear is another common obstacle, failure, or more precisely, our interpretation of failure. Winners don't see failure as the opposite of success. They see it as part of success. They understand that failure isn't an indictment of their worth, but information about their approach. It doesn't mean stop. It means adjust. In fact, if you're not failing occasionally, you're probably not pushing your boundaries enough. You're playing too safe, staying too comfortable, aiming too low. The key is to fail forward to extract lessons from each setback that improve your next attempt. Winners don't just experience failure, they exploit it. They mine it for insights. They use it as a stepping stone rather than a stopping point. I once asked someone who had achieved remarkable success after a series of major setbacks how they kept going. Their answer has stayed with me. I realized that failure was an event, not a person. It was something that happened, not something I was. That distinction is crucial. When you separate your identity from your outcomes, you develop resilience that no circumstance can shatter. You can experience disappointment without becoming discouraged. You can face rejection without feeling rejected. You can make mistakes without thinking you are a mistake. This brings us to perhaps the most important aspect of acting like you've already won. Self-belief. Not arrogance, not ego, but genuine confidence in your capacity to grow, contribute, and create value. Winners believe in themselves even when evidence for that belief is scarce. They maintain faith in their potential even when their current results are disappointing. They see themselves not just as they are, but as they could be. This isn't delusional thinking. It's developmental thinking. It recognizes that who you are today is not who you must remain tomorrow. It acknowledges that capacity grows with use, that ability expands with application, that confidence builds through courageous action. Self-belief isn't something you're born with. It's something you build decision by decision, action by action, day by day. You construct it through small wins that gradually convince you of your capabilities. You strengthen it by keeping promises to yourself. You expand it by stepping beyond what's comfortable into what's possible. When you act like you've already won, you create evidence for your self-belief each time you do what winners do. Despite fear, despite doubt, despite temporary setbacks, you prove to yourself that you have what it takes. And that proof becomes the foundation for your next courageous step. Many people mistakenly believe that confidence comes before action, that they need to feel ready before they can begin. But the opposite is true. Action precedes confidence. You build confidence by doing things that initially make you uncomfortable. The game of life isn't won by those with the most talent, the most connections, or the most advantages. It's won by those who decide to play at their best regardless of circumstances. Today, make that decision. Choose growth over comfort. Choose contribution over consumption. Choose purpose over pleasure. Your future is created by what you do today, not tomorrow. Act like a winner now, and winning becomes not just a possibility, but an inevitability. You have everything you need to start. Begin where you are, use what you have, do what you can. But begin. The world is waiting for your highest expression. Act like you've already won. Because in the most important ways, you have